friend of mine you're going to hear from shortly, but before we get to Judge Froelich, we are going to hear from another person from Northern Kentucky that's just an amazing individual, Dr. John Stephenson, who is the former State Superintendent of Education. He's been to all 120 counties at least 5 times, and he's only one of, how many people, John?
Well, I don't know any live ones.
So he's a living legend, and he's going to join us up here, and he's going to sing My Old Kentucky Home.
Yippee!
Well, Ed Massey, and one of the greatest educators himself, and his whole family have been on education since I can remember. And Tony, I tell you what, God blessed us with Tony. And I can say that as a historian. My grandchildren say, Tony, well, Grandpa, you're a historic relic. And I looked around and I looked back at him and I said, well, at least I'm a live one. But one of your best historic relics in Boone County was my good friend, Bruce Ferguson. And he was on the history tapes that I did, as well as Dr. Thomas Clark, one of my former teachers. And I have to mention Dr. Charles Talbert at the Community College and Mrs. Reuben Hinsdale at Simon Kenton High School. Because without those history teachers, I would not be standing in front of you today. In fact, the classroom teacher is a lost golden art that we need to always protect, hang on to, and support. And we need to learn from history. History is the light to our future. And tonight you're going to get an opportunity to see a book, read a book, and hear about a book that should be in every school system in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. It should be in everybody's library in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, because it's written by someone who's an excellent historian, who's an excellent legal mind, who's a fair and just person, Tony Crowley. Right, Tony? And now I'm going to sing a song for you that was taught to me by Happy Chandler. Many years ago in 1968, when I was president of the student body. And he said to me, he said, son, I'll sing this song for you in the student government today. He said, but poked me on the chest 2 or 3 times. He said, but you got to sing it from your heart. And I said, yes, sir. He taught me that song that day. I've sang it in every county in Kentucky, along with 2 other songs. One called I'd Rather Have Jesus, where I was saved at a Billy Graham crusade in 1956. If you haven't got saved, you need to get saved, because I'm going to tell you something. Heaven's quicker than you think. At 75, I know it. The other song was 16 Tons by Tennessee Ernie Ford. I've sang that one in every county in the state. Tonight I'm going to sing for you My Old Kentucky Home. From my heart. Oh, the sun shines bright on my old Kentucky home. 'Tis summer, the children at play. The corn tops ripe and the meadows are in bloom, and the birds make music all the day. Weep no more, my ladies, oh, weep no more today. We will sing one song for my old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home, far away. Now, before I sing the last verse, I don't want my photographer to do this, but everybody else, reach over and touch the pulse of the person next to you. Just reach over and touch it. If they haven't got one, call a doctor. But that pulse knows no eccentricity. That pulse knows no particular political party, no particular faith, no particular color. The only race is the human race, God's race. And you know something? We all need the greatest gift that God gave us, the gift of love. The gift of love. So when you reach down and touch a child on the head, you tell them you love them. As a school teacher, I always looked them in the eye and told them at the beginning of the year, I love you, I love you, I love you. And I want to continue to tell you, I love you. So behave yourself. And God does love us. And so tell your seniors that. And you reach down and pat a senior on the shoulder, tell them you love them. And you know something? Don't let anybody ever abuse seniors or children. Always stand up like Tony, a man of justice, a man of the law, like Ed, a watchman for the students. And the last verse goes like this. Oh, the children roll on the little cabin floor, all merry, all happy and bright. By and by, hard times comes a knocking at the door, then my old Kentucky home says good night. Weep no more, my ladies, oh weep. Now wait a second here, we're doing something wrong. You all sing along with me on this last verse. Weep no more, my ladies, oh weep no more today. We will sing one song for my old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home, far away. For my old Kentucky home, far, far, far away. God bless America, God bless Kentucky, and God bless Ed Massey and Tom Frolic, Rob Tony Frolic. Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition of godly principles.
Good.
That's great. Well, we aren't going to pass an offering plate, but thank you for getting us started off right. We really appreciate it. Tonight I have the privilege and honor. I was asked to introduce Judge Frolic, and we've become good friends, not just in the court system. We've hunted together, we've talked together, we've thought about life together, and he's just a dear, dear friend. And he is an amazing individual, not just in the court system, but to our county, because I do believe we have to preserve our heritage and our legacy. So tonight he's going to talk about his book, Serving the Law. And Serving the Law provides a history of Boone County government from its inception from 1798 to the present. Now there's only a few of you that go back that far. Right, Steve? Just kidding. All right. It contains valuable information on sheriffs, jailers, state representatives, state senators, United States representatives, and Boone County Police. In addition to the history, it has 271 biographies and over 200 photographs. That is a lot of work. This new book is a companion to his previous work at Kentucky Court, which was the winner of the 2014 Kentucky Historical Society Publication Award. This book contained the history of Circuit Court, County Court, District Court, Family Court, Court of Quarter Sessions, Court of Oyer and Terminer, Court of Appeals, Supreme Court, Commonwealth Attorneys, County Attorneys, Circuit Clerks, and County Clerks. And that goes back a long way. Master Commissioners, which Tony was a Master Commissioner, Domestic Relations Commissioners as well. The book contained a history of the Boone County Courthouse as well as the dark part of Boone County history relative to the hanging tree and mob lynchings. This book contained 157 biographies and 137 photographs, and if you've had the pleasure of being in the courthouse, you'll see many of the photographs of the old judges that are hung in the courtroom to this day. At one time or another in its history, Boone County shared its government or judicial functions with 14 other counties, so its history is part of the area of northern Kentucky. Judge Frolic has authored numerous publications, both of history and the law. I know he's even traveled overseas to talk about his experiences with the law. He's a graduate of Northern Kentucky University, where he graduated summa cum laude and received the Outstanding Student in History Award. He graduated first in his class from the Salmon P. Chase College of Law, something that I didn't do. So congratulations, Judge Froelich. He has been awarded Judge of the Year by both the Kentucky Bar Association and the Kentucky Justice Association, but he's also received other awards, including the Ann Fitzgerald Research Award, the Boone County Preservation Award, and the Bruce Ferguson Sustained Excellence in Historical Preservation. And despite all of those accolades, the best thing that I can say about Judge Froelich, in addition to being fair and just, is that he is a wonderful friend. And if you get to know him, he is just a true person, an authentic person, something we've somehow lost some today, and he's very civil. The incivility that exists today is amazing, but in his courtroom there was always honor, there was always respect, and there was always truth. He's the kind of guy that you could go through and you'd lose emotion and you felt okay about it. So without further ado, I'll introduce Judge Tony Froelich.
Woo!
And John, thank you both very much. Thank you for your many years of service to Boone County and to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We all realize it, we all appreciate it. Okay, well, serving the law. It took a long time to write it. I view this book as really a companion to a Kentucky court, which Ed just talked about. Kentucky court focused on the judicial branch of Boone County government. This new book reflects on and contains the history of the executive branch and the legislative branch. And I'm going to try to highlight 265 pages in less than 25 minutes, so that's my goal. All right. Kentucky was created in 1792, cut out from Virginia. And when they were adopted, when they were created, Kentucky pretty much adopted most of the laws of Virginia, and also adopted the same type of government as Virginia had. And Virginia had adopted many of the same laws and the same type of government as England had. So when Boone County was created by the legislature on December 13, 1798, and it became effective on June 1, 1799, Boone County was pretty much given the same type of government that everyone else had in the state. And the power on the local level was vested in the county court in those days. The county court was in charge of all tax assessments, the tax collection for the state, all law enforcement. It actually trained the military for the state at the local level. There was no state military training. And all the social order and maintenance laws were all done by the local counties. The county court was composed of justices of the peace. The justices of the peace were under the control of the sheriff. So when the state was created in 1792, the governor appointed the justices of the peace, and he picked out how many he wanted each county to have. The Constitution simply said the governor shall appoint sufficient number of justices of peace for each county so they can do their job. And then the sheriffs at that time were actually elected, and they were elected for 3-year terms, and they could not succeed themselves. But that wasn't working. 7 years later, we had a second constitution that met and was adopted. And they took away the number of justices of peace from the governor, and the legislature then started controlling how many each county would have. But the governor still appointed who they were going to be, and they sat for life, or as long as they were in good behavior. Now, sheriffs were treated differently. The existing county courts in 1799 would pick 2 people off the county court who were justices of peace and would submit 2 names to the governor, and the governor would pick one, and given, quote, due regard for the seniority of the justices of peace sitting on the court. So I assume there's probably an asterisk that went down next to one of the names when they sent it down to the governor and he picked that person. That's probably how it worked. In the Constitution of 1850, the position of county judge was established, and that was an elected position. And that county judge actually sat on real court cases, but he also was over the top of the county court for other administrative things that happened in the county. But the sheriffs were still truly the most powerful persons in the county. They collected the state and county taxes, they enforced the county orders, they enforced the circuit court orders, which he had adopted by that point in time. They summoned juries, And juries weren't picked in those days like they are today, where they're randomly selected down in Frankfurt. They walked out on the street and started grabbing people and said, hey, I need a juror, you're it. So, I mean, just think, he could either look the other way or look at you and you're sitting on that jury. Did all the law enforcement in the county, and he was the chief election official. Now think about that. There were no secret ballots in that day. So he was controlling, where you voted. He was standing there while you voted. He saw who raised their hand. So he was a pretty powerful figure for the counties. And I tell you that because when you read the constitutions, whether it's 1792, 1799, 1850, 1891, one of the main debates that took place in the constitutional debates was the power of the sheriff. And so when they made sheriffs elected in 1850 again, they did not want them to succeed themselves because they were afraid that a dynasty would occur in some of these counties, so they could not succeed themselves. And that just reflected the strong, background of the English and the Virginia and Kentucky wanted to stop that. Now this is a chart of the sheriffs. I created this mostly from reading county court order books. If you go over to the sheriff's office, you'll see a plaque hanging up that doesn't look like this. They've got different names hanging up. They've got some people hanging up that aren't on this chart. They've got different years, and I'll tell you that it's wrong. It was done in the 1960s and 70s by somebody, and it is wrong. There's no doubt it's wrong. And I'll tell you this is right. I've read every single order book. I've read the governor's commissions, and James Duvall, some of you know James Duvall, he's a very good historian, and one of his pet projects is the sheriffs. So basically, as I was researching sheriffs, we were trading information. They'll verify my chart. Now, when you do look at the chart, so the years are always an issue because you pick, there's dates you can pick from. Because when sheriffs were picked up to 1850, you would have the Justice Peace submit them to the governor. The governor would pick them, so he would issue a commission. Then that commission would come to the county court, so you have 2 dates there. Then at some point in time, the person to be sheriff would resign as the Justice of the Peace, and then he would come back and they would appoint him as sheriff, and then he had to qualify by posting a bond, and you had to have 2 people come in and sign the bond. So you got all these different dates. What do you pick for the sheriff? Now, the list that went from the county court to the governor was in September, October, or November. It had to be submitted in those 3 months. So the governor would be issuing that commission, so it may be in 1 year, or it might be in the next year when would actually be his year when he started as sheriff. So I picked the dates as he was sworn in, so you can go by those dates with respect to me. Now, I will tell you one thing about sheriffs. There's a red herring that you always need to be aware of when you're looking at sheriffs. And if you ever read the book by Robert Ireland called Antebellum County Courts, he talks about the same problem. It was more widespread in eastern Kentucky and western Kentucky than it was here in northern Kentucky, but it did happen in northern Kentucky, and it really caught me by surprise because my book was about ready to go to publication. I'm working on the next book, and I run across some orders and some indexes that talk about a guy by the name of Isham Hamilton being sheriff. Why didn't have him as a sheriff? He served as county clerk for 23 years. He served under 2 sheriffs as deputy sheriffs, and they start reading where they're referring to him as sheriffs when they're paying out commissions and when they are in the index books for doing certain things. I said, this can't be right. So I called James Duvall and said, man, you got to help me with this one. What do you think about this? And he says, I ran across that too. So the bottom line is this. In the early years, when you start picking out some of these sheriffs, 1 of 2 things may happen. One is they couldn't read or write, and they got their position just because of they fought in the Revolutionary War or fought in the War of 1812 and were a leader and they got on county court. Or by the time they became sheriff, they were so daggone old that they just couldn't do the job of collecting taxes. So they would have somebody else do it, let them get the commissions, and so sometimes clerks would make mistakes calling them